I'm your host, Sean MacKenzie. Thank you for joining me once again on my channel on data engineering. In this episode, we go back to our data engineering playlist, and we're going to take a look at cast and convert, which are two very handy functions that you can use in Azure SQL and in SQL Server in order to change data types or convert data types from one to another. And that makes it very, very handy, especially when you are receiving dates as strings and things like that from program code, and you can easily convert those. So without further ado, let's get to it. Looking to hire additional programmers for your project? Make sure to check out the additional links in the description. Okay, so this is kind of a fun one today, doing some cast and conversions. We won't cover all of them today. What I want to do is I just want to show you some good examples. And as you can see here, we've got these tables. Most of these are from the AdventureWorks database that Microsoft allows you to use as a sort of like a test database. And if I look at the product table, you can see it has all of these fields in it from saleslt.product. You'll notice that I right-clicked on the table and went select top 1000. That's how you can sort of get a query into your query pane here more quickly. And what we can do is we can take one of these fields, say the list price, and we can use cast on it, and we can cast it as an nvarchar or as a or as something else like a varchar, or we could cast it as maybe we'll cast it as an integer here in a minute. But you can see if I just put the cast statement around that, you can see it didn't take the column name, but you can see this has been casted to basically to text, and I'll call this text list price, and I'll hit F5. You can see now we've got a title on there. So if you want to change the data types of things that you're receiving in your queries, you can do that. Casting is one of the easy ways of doing it. And cast is, we can cast it as an integer as well. I think I can go int here, or I might need to go integer. We'll see. No, okay, yeah, so we have to put the full name in there, so we'll go as integer, and I'll go F5, and you can see now that text list price, which is no longer text, it has been converted to an integer data type. And so during the data type conversion, you can see that the precision is lost, and we can move on here. So let's take a look at this sell start date, when we started selling this particular thing. And we've got some very old dates in here from 2002, 2005, in June and July. And why don't we put a cast around that one, and we can do the same thing. Now that's a date data type, and so I can cast that as an nvarchar, and it isn't actually necessary to put the 64 on the end, or in the other case that we did. And I'll demonstrate in a minute here of doing varchar without the numeric size on it. But you can see I missed my column name again, so I'll just put in an alias as well on this one, and I'll call this one new date format. And when I hit F5, now you can see when I scroll over, actually I'll just close this here so that we have more room to play with. So now you can see when I changed it to nvarchar, you can see that it had a default date format that it changed it to, which was this July 1, 2005 at noon or midnight, I guess that would be. And so you're probably wondering, well, that's all nice and fine, but what if I want my date to look a different way? And that's where using convert comes into play. Now convert is actually, it uses, instead of saying as, it actually is more like a function where we say convert, and then we'll put our data type first, what we'd like to see it as, and then we put the expression or the field name after. And so now you can see if I use convert, I've got the same output that I had when I used cast. The only thing is with convert, we have the ability to specify some output parameters, and for dates in particular, one of the nice things is we can put these numbers after it. Now this is US date format is number 1, and I'll run through some of these just so that you can see some of the different ones that are available in the SQL Server Azure SQL output. So 101 is, like I said, that's the US date format. 102 is ANSI, ANSI. That's the with the dot in there. 103 is British French format with the date first and then the month and then the year. 104 I believe is German, which is similar. And I won't go through all of these, but I'll show you 110 here, which is USA. And now note that you can take the initial 1 off, so 110, you can just put in 10 and it'll do a 2-digit year as opposed to a 4-digit year. 111 is Japan. That's Japan's format in SQL Server, Azure SQL. And other notable ones, if you use 23, that's ISO 8601. And there are some other ones that are kind of neat, but you can check it all out in the documentation. 112 is also ISO. And ISO is just the standard format with the date first, but no dashes or dots or anything. And so there's some standard ones in there that you can use, and as you might have noticed from previous episodes, you can also use format for your dates. So if you have a very specific date format that's not here, then you can also use other formats. Now make a note, your data that you're casting has to actually be castable or convertible into the destination format. So if I try to put a name into a decimal here, you can see I get this error message. So you need to make sure that your column or your individual entry, if you're just putting in something without a field, that's not going to work. But if you put in something that's compatible, it will work. So I changed this one to a varchar. I do believe it is an nvarchar data type to start with. However, nulls will still show as nulls. So if I take this weight column here and I try to convert it to an nvarchar, for example, instead of the numeric data type that it is right now, and I'll call that new weight, and you can see that will still convert the entries that are there, but nulls are still handled, so they still show up as nulls even though you tried to convert the entire column to nvarchar. And the same thing is true if I try to change this entry to, or if I try to change it to a cast. So we'll do our cast syntax here, and we're going to cast it to an nvarchar, and we'll change that to cast. And then we also need to use as instead of an argument here. So this is all in one shot. We say cast weight as nvarchar. And you can see it's the same thing, so we still get our new weight column here, and the nulls, they show up as nulls, and the the 101604 numeric entries get converted to, or cast to nvarchar. So that's something that is very handy. You can also cast between numbers. If this is castable into a decimal, then we can do that. So I can cast this as a decimal with 17 and 5 precision. And so you can see how that would be very handy when you're changing different kinds of numbers and decimals, floats and things from one to the other. And there's our cast and our convert, and that's how you can use those two in Azure SQL. Want to help support my work? Make sure to check out my Patreon. The link is in the description.